Hey, what's up? And welcome back to another amazing episode of Glad You Asked. Today we are on episode number 17. It's a lot of episodes. Hey, I'm your co-host, John Lopez, New York City-based sports photographer.
Okay, now, John, let's pause for a second because you are a photographer. However, due to circumstances of your creative genius and where you're allowed to, can you give me a round number of how many sneakers you own at this point?
Listen, I want my beloved wife to know I own 2 pairs of sneakers.
Two pairs?
And that's
you got 2
it.
pairs here.
2 pairs.
You want one pair, you got one in your backpack. You trying to tell me
Jeff, what are you trying to do to me right now,
saying,
Jeff? I do not own many sneakers at all.
How many storage facilities do you work with in the greater tri-state area?
You know what? I'm glad you asked. Let's leave it at this. When you get to a certain age and a certain level in your marriage,
You ain't get the ask?
you know what I'm saying? I have 1 pair for basketball, 1 pair for everything else, Jeff. That's all.
That's all. Okay, cool. Well, I'm Jeff Henderson, footwear designer.
Much more than that, Jeff. I saw like 10 different business cards from your time with Nike that you just explained. You have about over 3,000 more, each with a different photo on it and current present day information. That is impressive.
Well, it's called being consistent. So at Nike, they gave out business cards. I never handed out a business card. Like by the time I really was adult enough to really need business cards, it was a phone, so you just traded information. So I never handed out business cards, but we got new ones done every time. And the only thing that would change was maybe my address, but the phone number on campus would stay the same. But I also added things like good things and my own personal email address. I'm not sure I was supposed to do that, so those business cards are still useful. So every now and again, I may break out the black Sharpie and cross off my Nike information. It's still handed out the business cards.
With the Sharpie?
I'm recycling, John. I am saving the planet. That's what I'm doing.
So for those of you college students out there listening, pay close attention. When you get that job and you get your first business card, think ahead.
Consistency.
Think ahead. Don't change your phone number 12 times. You know what I'm saying? Don't change your email address. And by all means, do not put your business email on your business card.
Hey. The business email's on there, which is why I have to use the Sharpie to erase because if you email me at jeff.henderson@nike.com, I'm not going to reply anymore. There might be somebody there replying by now, but it won't be me.
Hey.
So, John, what are we going to talk about today?
I'm glad you asked, Jeff. And there's only one of you, for the record, in all of Earth. Flat Earth, by the way, if you ask Kyrie Irving.
Hey, he's playing in Ohio. I got to take him a little bit serious. He's not just trolling everybody. He might actually have a point because he's in Ohio, okay? I got to say. It's flatland out there, so maybe he's seeing something that we're not. Clearly he's seeing something.
All right, well, today I want to talk to you about probably a little known feature within Photoshop, or maybe it's popular by now. But you can actually make GIFs straight out of Photoshop. And so a GIF, if you don't know, you've been sleeping under a rock for the past 10 years.
GIF or GIF?
GIF. I call it GIF. You go GIF? Are you a GIF kind of guy?
I think I saw somewhere where it's a GIF. I tend not to say it out loud. That way I don't have to fall for it. It's just that thing that you can make little videos out of pictures thing.
Well, it's .gif. I like to call it a GIF. So basically what it is, it's actually a very old thing. You know, GIFs were popping like in the 90s when the internet like first boomed. And
it's cheap video.
Exactly. This pixelated, awful looking thing. But anyway, it's kind of made its resurgence. In fact, now if you have an iPhone, they even have like GIFs sort of built in that you can kind of search for and use instead of emojis to kind of relate your feelings.
Everybody's using a GIF now, even my mom.
Exactly.
Or her Motorola. Two-way pager.
I used to have one of those, man. So anyway, the process is actually quite simple, so we'll kind of jump right in here. What I'm doing is I have 4 images that I selected for this. So in Photoshop, you know, all the images are tabbed.
Can we take a step back? He just said I have 4 images. Who do you have up on the screen now, Mr. John Lopez? I know people.
Oh, this is just, you know,
Peoples.
a couple artists, you know, I happen to know, you know. On the right, this is actually a cool story. You have the one and only, the inimitable Bobito Garcia, a.k.a. Cool Bob Love. Shout out to Bob. Bob recently, among his many accomplishments, one of the
many.
most important accomplishments Bob had was he had the honor of moderating a panel I sat on.
I'm sure that's the first thing when you go to Bob's website that he moderated. John Lopez.
I'm sure it's among the top things on his CV.
He's moderated at home right now. Remember that day? It was a cool fall evening. Yes. I don't know who the other panelists were, but John Lopez. I introduced him.
No, it turns out through the game of basketball, being a small community that it is, and it turns out the world is a pretty small place. Bobito and I have struck a rapport and a really great tight friendship over the past more than a decade at this point. From playing against each other and then playing alongside each other. We collaborated together on Bounce magazine, the now defunct magazine that was truly amazing.
Is it defunct because y'all messed up? Is that what you're saying? In spite of your courageous efforts.
No, I mean, it took a lot of energy and time, and I know that, Bob was one of a rotating few editors-in-chief. And, it just took a lot of time out of people's schedules, and it was kind of tough to keep up. And then the sponsorship, became an issue over time and everything like that. But it was really an amazing magazine for those people who were a part of it as writers, photographers. It was actually, I believe it was the first magazine that I was published in. So
that's what
fat shout out to my man.
That's the way Bob sells it. You got your first paycheck as well.
That's my man. And Bob said it is true. So anyway, I've been able to get to know, the great Bob over the many years. And so we've worked together on all of his films, actually, from Doing It in the Park, Pick Up Basketball NYC. I journeyed with him as a cinematographer, and I helped film the scene that took place at Rikers Island, which was a great experience and a lot of fun to see kind of basketball on the inside and kind of debunk many of the myths about the egregious fouls that are happening. There are probably more egregious fouls at the Dalton run on Tuesdays.
Shout out to Teddy. Shout out to Billy.
But I digress. So anyway, we worked on that together. He brought me on as a cinematographer for the Stretch and Barbito Radio That Changed Lives documentary, which is on Netflix now, and I strongly encourage you to check it out. And if you read the fine print in the credits, you'll see my name somewhere scrolling at the end of that.
I think second after Bob.
It should have been. After Stretch and Bob. No. But anyway, now Bob is working on his third film, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And it's a biopic called Rock Rubber 45s. And so on this particular day, we got to go and film an interview. I was behind one of the cameras.
You gonna tell me Patty's a baller? Is that what you gonna say?
Patti LaBelle. It's you know what? She may or may not have dunked on Bob at some point. You know what I'm saying? But the truth is Bob.
There a Prince story?
When you talk to Bob, one thing about Bob is he only tells you his highlights. So you would never know how many times she dunked on him and threw it around his back and all that.
There might be a Prince story in there somewhere.
Listen,
shirts versus blouses.
I'm not in the business of spoiler alerts, but Bob may or may not have learned all of his basics to boogie from the great, one and only legendary Patti LaBelle.
Big time.
No, so this is actually an awesome moment. And so at the end of the interview, I asked if she would be so kind to stand for me for a portrait with Bob, and she very generously agreed to do so. And so I brought out my Hasselblad 500
Yo, what?
It's a film camera, coming from the 1950s.
I gotta Google this right quick. What's...
Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned this.
So film?
I'm setting up the photo and I'm getting the lights set up and everything. I'm using my light meter because it's film and I got to make sure I get it right. And I take the photo and I take a couple of them. And she says, "Oh, can I see the image?" And I look up and I pause like, wait a minute, I'm about to have to tell Patti LaBelle no. And so I explained to her, no, this is actually a film camera, so there's no image to be shown on the back of the screen because there is no screen on the back of the camera. In fact, there are no batteries.
I gotta go to CVS and get this film process.
There's only one button on this thing, and that's to shoot. So anyhow, she said, she looked at me in my eyes, with this warm, loving tone that you could just feel that was just emanating in the room. And she said, "You know what? That's the best way to take the photo." So, I was just blown away by that. It was really, truly an honor and a pleasure to be able to sit in the same room with Patti LaBelle and this other guy named Bob over there. Yeah, I know.
Y'all had pies. Loving moment right there.
Absolutely. Well, then she went on to go do her concert because she's still on tour, and it's just so amazing to see the vitality, the energy, the persistence, like the long. I mean, she is timeless. Timeless. So anyway, look out for Rock Rubber 45s. You know, shameless plug for my man Bob's new film. I'm sure you'll find some more amazing guests on there. So speaking of that film, actually,
he just flips through some photographs. We don't need a story for everyone, but my goodness, come on now. You got Talib, you got Maxwell, you got Justin.
That's right. So
day in the life of.
So now let's put these together. So I'm kind of rotating through these, and as you can tell, Photoshop, you know, my images are tabbed up here. So if I just hold Control on a Mac and hit the Tab key, I'm not sure what the equivalent is on a PC. It might be Function on a Windows. I'm not sure, but on a Mac, it's the actual Control button. If I hold Control and press Tab, I can cycle through my tabs of images here. And so what I want to do is kind of create a GIF that will sort of emulate this motion for me, just kind of showcasing these images. And you know what? For argument's sake, maybe we'll even add some text in here just to make it unique. So let's jump right in. Let's go ahead and create a new file. So I'm gonna press Command or Control N, and it gives me the new document option here. So this is the dialog. I do want it to be square. I'll name this GYA 17. Why not? And everything else can stay the same, and I'll say create. So just give me this new blank document. The first thing I want to do is I would like to bring all of my images into this document. So to do this, I'm going to go, I think it's under View, Window, Arrange, and I'm going to go for tile. So I'm going to tile all of these. Now you'll see here that it says Shift Command R is the shortcut, but that's a custom shortcut. I just kind of went in, and we can talk all about setting up the preferences for Photoshop. But because I use this feature quite a bit when I'm doing this kind of work, I set up a hotkey because I do this pretty often. So in the spirit of that, I'm going to hold Command Shift and press R. Now, again, if you want to use that same shortcut for your own workflow, you're going to have to go into the Photoshop preferences and kind of change up the shortcuts for that. So this just makes it easy. So now I have all that. So my new document is here. I can tell because it's blank. And so I'll click here. I'm going to click and drag to drag Maxwell over, and I'll hold Shift as I let it go so that it places it in the center.
One celebrity at a time.
And I'm going to drag Patty over, drag and drop, holding Shift, letting that go. I'll drag Talib Kweli over, holding Shift as I let go again, center that file. Then I'm going to drag over Jeff Staple. Again, I'm going to hold Shift as I let go to center that file. And let's just make sure it's there. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to press Shift Command W, another custom shortcut I made. And I can see that I do in fact have, oh, I dragged the wrong one over. I can see that this exposure file came over, which is not what I wanted, so I'm going to undo that.
Like episode 15? That's so old, John Lopez.
Well, I'm going to have to go into here to my Jeff Staple file, and what I'm going to do is just drag it over like such. Okay, now we're ready. So I'll drag Jeff over, boom, click in here, Shift Command W for that shortcut. Okay, and so it's smaller than the Talib, as we can see. So I have to shrink Talib's down. So I'm going to click on the Talib file, press Command T. Then I can see that the bounding box is here, but I can't see all of it. So to do that, I'm going to press Command 0, and that shows me the entire Talib file. And I'm just going to drag that down so that it's more in line with the rest of my images there. And then I'm actually going to take all of them. So I'll shift click. Where did my images go? Oh, I'm in the wrong file. There we go. That's the problem. So we'll go Command Control Tab, get over to, there we go, GYA 17. Boom. Okay, now I'm in the right place. And I just dragged Jeff Staple to the wrong file, so let's do this again. Forgive me. This is live, ladies and gentlemen.
Producers are now going edit.
All right, so let's make sure that I'm grabbing, in fact, the Jeff file. Bring it over to the GYA. Hold Shift as I let go. Much better. There we go. Okay. Now we're where we need to be. So I have all my layers here, and I'll shrink this a little bit so you can see them. So I have my background layer, which is the blank one. Layer 1 is Maxwell. It's a great habit to get into, to name your layers.
Name your layers, people. I don't do that all the time, but I'm learning from John Lopez. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes when you have 4 billion gigabytes on one computer and it's crashing, you might want to fix it. Just saying. Just saying.
Indeed. So I noticed that the Talib Kweli file is larger than the rest. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to select Jeff, Patty, and Maxwell. And I know they all need to be enlarged. So I'm just going to press Command T to get my bounding box. And now I'm going to enlarge them. But if I enlarge them one at a time, it does it unevenly. So I'm going to hold Shift so that when I enlarge, it grows proportionally. And then I'm going to hold Option because they're all square. And I already know that, and my image is square. So I'm going to hold Option to make it grow from the center so that it fills the screen proportionally exactly where I need it to be. Then I'll let go, and I'll hit Return to get that where that needs to be. Then I'm going to click on the Talib file, hide Jeff for a second. And then I noticed that this is not the full image. It's too large. So again, I'm going to hit Command T. And I know that the bounding box is there because I can see this here, but I can't see it. So I'm going to press Command 0. And this is the actual image. So then I'm going to go like this. And I know I kind of want it to be cropped already anyway. So I'll bring it to where I really want it. As such.
Rule of thirds, rule of thirds.
That's right. Here we have a square. So boom, I hit Return to do that. Press Command 0 to go back full screen. Okay, so now all I did was just get all the files in one document.
All square, all fit in. Exactly. And we just hit the magic GIF button, right?
Not exactly. But we're close though. So now we have the images. Now we're going to click on this timeline option. I'm going to double tap that and I'm going to say create video timeline. So I'll click that. And so now, if you're familiar with editing programs such as Adobe Premiere Pro or maybe Final Cut Pro or even iMovie, this is sort of a standard thing for non-linear video editing software. And so here we have all of our layers. And currently, you can tell by the way that they are all the same length and time that you can only see the one on top, right? But if I drag it back, let's say, it's giving me a preview of how long they are. So these are going to be, you see how it goes from 29 to 1? That's because this is a 30, by default, it's a 30 frame per second frame rate.
Okay.
So now I know. So let's say I want them all to be, if I want it to be half of a second, they're going to have to be 15 frames. So let's do that. Let's go to 15 frames. Boom. Right? And now it snaps. So now that I got the first one accurate, I can just drag the other kind of recklessly, and then it'll snap into place, and I'll know that the rest of them are going to be 15 frames. That was an arbitrary decision, by the way. So some people might be curious, well, why 15? Why not 16 or 40? Or this is arbitrary. You can make it 5 seconds if you want, but
John
I know it's going to be a GIF.
What he does.
I know it's going to be a GIF, and I want it to cycle relatively quickly, but I want to give you time to savor each image as well. So I think half of a second is actually plenty of time for this to go on. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger them. So I'm going to shift click. I shift click the bottom. And again, they're in arbitrary order. If you had a precise order for where you wanted things to be, more power to you. Move it around as you see fit. So I'm going to drag here. It snaps. I'm going to command click to deselect Talib. Drag the last two over. Command click to deselect that one. Drag that over. Okay, so now I'll come in here and I'll reduce the size so you can see more of a full size view of this. So now we're 90% there, right? So if I hit this play button, you'll see this is kind of the speed and pace. And we keep going forever. And that's kind of what I want my GIF to do. Just cycle. And there are many reasons for this, right? Maybe you just want to put this on Instagram. Maybe you just want to put it on Twitter. Fine. Maybe this is, a creative way that you might want to showcase some of the images that you've created that you're proud of, right? For a particular event, for a particular day, for a particular project. This is a pretty cool way to kind of share multiple images. And again, when we're talking about security and protecting your images, you might slap your watermark on top of this. But now when you create this video and you put it on Instagram or Twitter with your watermark, it's that much more challenging for someone to kind of copy it and use it in an inappropriate way or maybe not license it from you. So many reasons to do this. It's dynamic, certainly, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be square format, by the way. I chose this because 3 out of 4 of these images were photographed on my Hasselblad camera, which is a medium format camera and shoots only in the square format.
It only shoots in square. I did not know that.
Correct. So this is what our GIF is going to look like, and I'll hit the space bar to kind of stop that. So now we can add all kinds of other fun things to this. I mean, including audio. You can see down here, this is space for audio track. I'm not going to add audio today, but I can add more layers though. So let's add another layer. I'm going to make it cover the entire length of this project. To end where the last frame ends. And let's get a type tool. I'm going to press T for that. Click up here. And let's say where you can find us. If I can spell Glad You Asked correctly.
So if you have questions on or complaints about, John, I actually pronounce it Jife, and I pronounce it Japig. So could you do it the way I want to? And you can send all your email complaints directly to John, not at this email address. But if you have real questions that you really like to ask us, or just comments about some of the work we're doing here, hit us at yo@gladyouasked.today.
That's right. And one thing that's always interesting with colors, and I'd like to kind of talk about it now. Typically, you want your colors to be balanced and kind of harmonious with your images and what's going on screen. And we have 4 very distinct images, so it may not work. For example, this color here looks great because it just matches kind of the tone of this particular image. Here, not so much. Here is kind of fine, not quite matching very well. Here, not so much either. So one of the tricks I've learned over the years as far as graphic design goes, and I don't pretend to be this amazing graphic designer.
Neither one of us do, just so we're clear.
So what I can do though is I can go to my brush tool and I can hold Option to get my color picker. And I can actually choose a color from my image so that at a minimum I know that it's harmonious because it came from the very same image. So here I'll just try to sample kind of this gold color here. And you'll see down here it became my foreground color. And if I hold Option and hit Delete, it'll go there. The problem with what I just did was, well, it matches too good with the background, right? So there's a couple of things I can do with this. First of all, I can select it all, go into the color. Now that I have that color, I can adjust the saturation level of it and bring it up a little higher. So it's still in the same family of the colors within the image, but I'm making it a little bit brighter. Right? And let's see what that does. That helped, but it's still kind of difficult to see. So another thing we can do, we can double tap in an empty area here on the layer. If I double tap here, I'm going to be able to change the name of the layer, which I don't want to do. So I want to double tap in an empty space to the right on that layer. And then I get the layer style panel. I'm going to bring this down so we can see what we're doing. And what I want to do is I want to add a drop shadow. So I'm going to click in here. And as you can see already, it's helping us quite a bit. I'll bring the opacity up a little higher. We can adjust things like distance. And if you're using, I think, Photoshop CS6 or later, you can actually come in here and just drag this shadow around and move it around manually, which is kind of cool to give you an idea of what you're doing. So I'm going to keep that close. I'd like to adjust the opacity a little lighter. And I'm going to say, well, I can turn the preview off to see before and after. And that's sufficient for me. So again, I'm not showing you something that I think is going to be a final product for me and my work and what I'm going to be doing, but I'm showing you that there's a lot of options for you to play around with here. So I'm going to go back to the Move tool by using V as a shortcut. Move this up to the top where more or less it's going to be above everything and visible everywhere for all 4 of these images. That's great. Now this is also great if you're creating a GIF. Maybe you want to run a sale, right? 50% off print sale. Or maybe you want to announce you have an upcoming exhibition, right? This is another great way to kind of do those kinds of things. So here, again, I'm going to shrink this to match the end of my final image. And if I hit play, you see the text stays and the images move. Okay, great.
Now you hit the make a GIF tool button.
Yes, close.
We're not there yet? Come on, this technology ain't really work for me, John.
So from here, we can go into File, Export, and there are many options here. Quick export is JPEG. We do not want a JPEG, right? Nor do we want a PNG in this case, because this image needs to move. So if we export a JPEG or a PNG file or anything like that, it's going to be just one image, the top image that's there when it goes. So we don't want that. Export as is typically pretty good, but when you want to deal with a GIF, you want to go to Safer Web Legacy. This has been a kind of interesting topic in the updates for Photoshop, why they don't just include it with the regular export as features, but that's none of my business. I just use the software. I'm not in charge of what goes on in the creation of it.
You're not about to protest? You're not about to resist right now? That's not
neither,
on your list? That's
neither
not on your
one.
list?
No, I'm all set. I know how to get these done.
Sad. Photoshop used to be great. Make Photoshop great again.
Nah, Photoshop is great. Safer Web Legacy. Click that. And here we go. We have our preview. You can tell here it's a GIF. That's just because that's the last thing I actually use this for. But you can save it as a JPEG, PNG, or a bitmap.
And usually Safer Web lets you create things that are smaller in scale or in size and weight.
Correct. And it also gives you the option to adjust that further while you're in here. So I can actually change the size of it right here if I wanted to. By percent, maybe I could bring it down to make it even smaller. It also gives me a preview of how big the file is. So this is a 2.8 megabyte file right now. Let's just say, that could be kind of heavy for something like Twitter or Facebook, right? It's to upload on people's browsers and phones and so on. So I want to bring this down. So I'm going to take the percentage, bring it down, let's say to, I don't know, let's go to about 800 pixels, whatever, right? Click away, and then it'll all update. So now that's much more manageable. It's 799 kilobytes. That's much more manageable for anything, I think. And then let's get a preview. So the other thing you want to really make sure you fix here, if you want this to be a GIF, check these looping options down here. We do not want it to loop once, because then it'll loop through the cycle.
2 seconds and you out.
And then done so. Exactly. Well, that's fast engineering, man.
It's mad. I can keep up. I can keep up.
So we're going to loop this forever.
My degree did not expire, John.
Just so we're clear. Well, nothing expires for you. Your business cards obviously don't.
Recycle. Consistency.
So now we can hit play here just to preview this in our window to see what we're going to get. And you get an idea of the pace. You can kind of get one last preview of how this is looking. And man, actually the quality of this is looking quite rich. Sometimes it can be degraded, but in this case it isn't. So I'll say stop.
Take it down some more. Let's see how small we can get before it looks bad.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Let's see what we get. Let's go down to
for my mother on her Motorola
450. Let's see what 450 looks like. It's even smaller. We're viewing this at 100% down here. If I hit loop, man, that is impressive.
Still pretty clear.
It is, but you know what I did though? I didn't change it to forever. Got to go to forever. You do not want to save that like that. You know what? Let's just export it here, 29% of size, and let's see what we get. Actually, you know what? Let's go up a little bit more.
He got nervous.
Let's go maybe 700-ish, somewhere around there. And then I'm going to say save. It's going to ask me, where do you want this thing to be saved? I'm going to go ahead and save it to my desktop for the purposes of this demonstration. And I'm just going to, I can see that it has a .gif, so I know what it's going to be. I'll hit save on that. Then I will go to my desktop, which is somewhere over here. Click that on the Mac. If I hit the space bar, I can get a preview of this. Boom!
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. That, folks, is how you create a GIF using Photoshop. And all of the amazing thing about this, I don't know if I really emphasize enough, all of the Photoshop tools are available to you here. That's what makes it so powerful. So if I wanted to make a dramatic change over all of these files, I can add an adjustment layer, which we talked about in a previous episode.
We can use our curves.
We can use curves.
We can mask.
Yes.
We can do all of this. What are we going to learn in episodes 21 through 40, John?
You know what? I'm giving you everything I got right now. I don't know. But so, I'll use something different here just because I want it to be a drastic change that makes some kind of sense. So I'll go with the saturation. And I will desaturate this image. So now we just went into black and white. Just like that.
Or I did all of them at the same time.
Well, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment layer. So now it's on top of all of them. So if I wanted to, I could drag that to only half, right? And then 2 images will be black and white, and 2 images will be in color. Right? And then I can again just drag this out, boom, and then it'll continue. And this is true for every single thing in Photoshop. So again, I don't recommend this, but let's just say I do this here. I can come in here. I can reduce Let's say all of the yellows, 0 saturation. Greens, I'll bring the saturation down to 0. Blues, I'll bring the saturation down to 0. Let's go back up to the cyans. Bring that down to 0. Cyan, by the way, is the opposite of red. Blues I already brought down. Magentas, let's bring the magentas all the way down. So now what I did was I left only reds in. And so if I turn the master all the way down, everything goes black and white. But now I leave it on 0. If I hit play, the only color you're going to see is where there's red in the image, which looks hideous in this example, but I'm just going to show you.
John is showing us how to make hideous
gifts. This is how you make hideous work.
This is how it works.
Well, the point is you can put any adjustment layer over the top of these and you can get some amazing results. You know, I mean, let's get crazy. Let's try to do a threshold. Look at that.
Just so you know, people, John is going to go on for the next 4 hours playing with this because that's what John does. But I have to say right now, thank you for joining us at Glad You Asked today. You have any questions? Because John's just going to keep playing with his gift for the next 3 hours probably. We won't even get to episode number 18 today. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your efforts, John. Anything else?
No, that's it. I've been muzzled. Peace.